Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Evening, everyone, to the Plan Commission meeting for December 17, 2024. The first thing is to call to the order to the meeting. It's 6:31. Next is approval of the minutes.
I move approval.
Second.
Any question, comments? Here none. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the November 19 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next is public appearances for no agenda items. Do we have anyone on the chamber that wish to speak on something no on the agenda? Online? Okay, so we move forward to item number 4, agenda review. Any comments? No? Okay, so next we move to agenda items, and we will start with item number 5A. It's a conditional use CU-2571-24, request by David Porto, agent from MPS2P LLC, to obtain a restaurant, drinking places, and amusement and recreational services conditional use permit to operate an event space in conjunction with a catering prep kitchen located on property associated with 5302 Anton Drive. So we have tonight here the applicants, Michael Porto and David Porto. Do you want to come to the microphone and do your presentation? Who else we have? 2A? Oh, we have William. This one is? Yeah. Okay. Oh, those two. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for your time. I just want to preface this a little bit. Michael has been the partner at Blue Plate that has been in charge of most of the communication with the general contractors and construction teams. So he is going to lead this because he has all of the data.
Okay.
Thank you. Members of the Plan Commission, as David said, my name is Michael. I'm the Director of Operations at Blue Plate and one of the owners. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you about this proposal for the conditional use of the event space at 5302. I would like to walk you through the space, give you an idea of how I think it will help benefit the community, and then I figured you might not know a lot about Blue Plate, so I wanted to give you a little bit of information about Blue Plate, and I'm actually going to start there. We've been around for 31 years. We specialize in corporate and social off-premise catering. You can see that we've got some business relationships mentioned. We work hard at fostering those relationships. We're a small company, and we work hard to support and work with other small companies, but of course some of those there are not small at all in any stretch of the imagination. We have a couple of values that are really important to us as a company. I wanted to highlight a couple of those. We are employee-centric. We have an average tenure for our culinary full-time staff of over 5 years. That's over 2.5 times the norm. An average tenure for all of our full-time staff at 6 years. And as I was compiling this, I had a couple of little tidbits of information I found that were really fun and helpful for me. And I put this last one on there, that with the 25 current full-time employees that we have, We've got 160 years of combined service in those employees. I think that's a really wonderful testimony to the way that we work to care for our employees. And then second, community is important to us. We have a lot of different organizations that we have provided goods and services to over the years. There's the Andy North Trivia Night, the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County, and then the Feed the Front Lines initiative, which you may not be familiar with, but when the pandemic hit, we were struggling to find out how we could, as a company, survive, but also benefit what was going on around the Madison area. So we started this Feed the Front Lines, and we were feeding hospital workers and homeless for, I think, the better part of 2 years. Is that right? Yeah. So several thousand meals that went out to impact our community. I also wanted to share a little bit about our path to 5302, the places that we have been. So we were founded in 1993 in the basement of Monty's Blue Plate Diner. As you can see, the logos there are very similar, and even today, we still hear about this connection all the time. I was meeting with some contractors at the building a couple days ago, and one of them said, "Oh, Monty's Blue Plate, huh?" I said, "Well, totally different company, but we understand the connection." Our founder started there, was in the basement for a year, and then after a year, she moved out to a little bit down the road on Atwood, and was in that other place for 3 years until she moved into the Wisconsin Trade Center, which is right over on the Madison-Middleton line up in Middleton. And we were there from 1997 until our next spot in 2010. And here, the dynamics of our business changed a little bit, and I'll talk more about that after the following slide. But we had a corporate cafe, and then we also ran catering out of this location. In 2010, we moved to the Bishop O'Connor Center, which is over by where the Beltline goes from east to west to north and south, over by the Princeton Health Club. And we have been there for the last 14 years. This has been our home, a little bit of a non-traditional space, but we have grown to really enjoy and appreciate it. And then I said that we had a dynamic to the way that we ran business, and that was this mixture of corporate cafes and catering. And what we found was, well, I guess our founder found was when the late 90s and the early 2000s were happening, it was difficult to maintain catering, just catering all year round and provide good amounts of hours for staff. So T-Wall Properties reached out, who was the owner of the Wisconsin Trade Center, and they asked, would you please move in, open this corporate cafe, and then we would be able to provide meals for the people who were there on site for these different companies. And we found that there's a natural rise to catering during the summer and a natural rise to this type of service in the fall and the winter. And so the two complemented one another really well. And then over the course of the next several years, we built upon this and expanded. So there's the location at the Trade Center. We were there for 13 years. And then after we moved to the Bishop O'Connor Center, there was an additional 5 years where we had just the cafe. There's a location at Dean, actually 2 different locations at Dean, one for 13 and one for 5 years, just right down the street from one another. City Center West on Junction, we were there for 13 years. And then M3 Insurance, we're still at M3, and of those cafes that are listed there, that's the only one that we still have open. When the pandemic hit, all of those offices closed down. Nobody was working there anymore. And so we changed the dynamic. And then at that point, it was beneficial for Blue Plate to step away from this type of a way to run the business. And instead, we migrated to just managing, doing catering. And that's really where we sunk our energy into. Something similar happened also with liquor licenses. We used to host liquor licenses at some Madison area locations. There was Warner Park for 15 years, Olbrich for 15, and then at Harley-Davidson. And of those 3, the only one that's still in place is at Harley. And we not only do the liquor license, but we also manage their event space. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. This stuff is important, I think, for you to see. The numbers, I hope they speak for themselves, that we work really hard to be a good benefit to the corporations that we're oftentimes housed in and the buildings that we're housed in, and we want to seek to bolster whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish as companies. That's very important to us. One of our clients I reached out to for some feedback. This is Zach from M3. He's one of the partners there. He said, Blue Plate has served as Madison's insurance, employee cafe, and event caterer for the last 10 years. The Blue Plate employees have always been top-notch to the point that they feel like they are a part of our organization, and that's really the goal that we're shooting for. The difference in years, the discrepancy is 8 years as just a cafe, but 10 years we've been doing catering for them in total. And then in addition to these on-premise relationships, we've also worked hard to foster and develop some off-premise relationships. So the names that you see there, or the locations that you see, they make up a small amount of what I would say are the over 50 locations we visit on a yearly basis. as we're seeking to do off-premise. And if Monday through Friday is corporate in nature, then the weekends are really heavily focused towards these types of relationships. Let's talk about 5302. We've got the space separated out here into 3 different colors. Hopefully it's easy to understand. The items in blue are the locations in blue. That makes up our admin and our kitchen culinary space, and then some of our operations. And then in green is where the banquet hall or the event space would be, and then white, which maybe is hard to make out, is on the left, and that's going to be storage space. And I'd like to walk you through some of the renderings of the space to give you an idea of the vibe that we're going for. So we're excited about our office space. Currently, our office and our kitchen are separated by about 100 feet. There's a breezeway in between there and lots of equipment, and we're really looking forward to being right next door to one another. On the right side, on the picture, on the left side of that picture, you can see a blue-walled room. That's going to be our kitchen, and our office is where the vantage point is from. So we're really excited about that being right next door to one another. There's a corporate meeting and a tasting suite. The corporate meeting room would be for us to utilize, and then as a VIP suite if somebody who's going to be in the venue space wants to use it. And then if there's a smaller corporation that would like to rent the space to have a meeting, then we would like to house them there. And the tasting suite would be for individuals, for clients who would come in, couples that are looking to taste our food and see what our service is about. And then our commercial kitchen. I think of all the spaces, we are most excited about the commercial kitchen space. We're kind of cramped where we are. It was a kitchen for a seminary, and it was, I think, built sometime in the 50s. So it's a little bit antiquated, and it's got some uniqueness to it. And we're really looking forward to the open space that we'll have in our kitchen. We're expanding our square footage by a pretty big amount. And then we'll have a catering supply depot and an operations and delivery hub that are right next door to that and right next door to one another. And our operations team, they do a great job every day. We are really glad to provide them with some extra space. Onto the event space. So 3,000 square feet, designed to host up to 150 people. The configuration that you see on the screen would be for a corporate training. And it'll have AV equipment. You can see the conference room off to the right there, and then kind of off behind you to the right is where the bar would be located. And to help to contextualize how we are really looking to utilize this space, I think we're shooting for 80% of corporate and then 20% social. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a case study. So I told you that we manage the space at Harley-Davidson, and here you can see 2 different setups. We have been there for the last 15 years, and when a corporate client reaches out to Harley, they've learned now they just call it Blue Plate. We'll secure the space for them, and then we work as the caterer for them. And what we're hoping to do is something that would be very similar to this, where we would have a client that's going to show up, and they're looking for a simple solution of housing their meeting and having catering both in the same location. We know that there are lots of companies that would do this. I talked with the individual at Blue Plate that manages our corporate sales, and she said that we've had over 100 events at locations like the following so far this year. So there's Olbrich and Goodman Community up on the northeast side of town. There's Lucier Family Heritage down by Lake Wabisa, Capitol Brewery in Middleton, Old Sugar Distillery on the Isthmus, and then Harley-Davidson over on the east side. And you'll notice there's a little bit of a void, and we're hoping that this space would hit that niche of individuals that are looking for a place to host their corporate events. We believe that this will provide some community and economic growth or impact. There'll be traffic driven to local businesses. We've got a car wash right next door on one side, and then there's another venue that's right next door to us. But I think from looking at their Facebook page and seeing the types of events that they have on their website, they're looking for a different target market than we're looking for. So I think the 2 of us would actually complement each other really well, and the business that we would drive to one another in the form of free advertising would be pretty helpful. And then we're going to highlight a portion of the city that's often overlooked. I live right down the street from here. I'm 1.2 miles away, and I go to church just 5 parcels down from here, and so I'm frequently driving by, and we're really looking forward to this space not looking as it has the last couple of years. Then community space as well for local nonprofits and for area businesses. The church I just mentioned, David and his family also attend, and his wife, I think for the last 3 or 4 years, certainly the last 3 or 4, maybe 5, we have put on a winter clothing drive that goes specifically to this group of individuals that live in this neighborhood. And it just happened 2 months ago, and we were talking afterwards and saying, something like that is what we would really like to provide a space for the community to be a part of. And then obviously area businesses would take advantage of it. And then jobs. Full-time, part-time, the space there is over 2 times the space that we have where we currently are square footage-wise, and that would provide a growth for us. I think the full-time positions would come in slow growth, and then part-time, we're always hiring moving into the summer season because that's when we're both most busy, and Madison is a very transitory city, so there's lots of turnover with people that are working. And just another fun little story. It was, I think, 2 weeks ago, David worked his first shift 20 years ago for Blue Plate, and he started as a high school student. And at the time, our owner had kind of a gentle policy that she wasn't going to employ high schoolers because she had some bad experiences. So my mom was working the shift. She was the event lead, from my understanding, and she knew she was going to be short a server because somebody had called in sick. So she reached out to our founder and she said, here's the deal. I need somebody to work. I'm going to bring him in. If you don't like him, then he won't work another shift. So he's still here 20 years later, still doing the job. One of the partners, the GM. And we have employed high school students pretty routinely and regularly, as well as college students. And aside from David as that one example, we've got 7 other individuals at Blue Plate that we currently employ, 4 of those full-time and 3 of those part-time, who started with us in high school and are still with us today, and we're really, really proud of that. David had the opportunity to speak with Joe Maldonado after the last meeting, and Joe had this to share. After meeting with the general manager of Blue Plate Catering, I'm happy to support a location here in Fitchburg. The addition of this business will contribute to the well-being of the Anton Drive corridor and to the city as a whole. David and his team have a vested interest in not only being a good neighbor and a thriving business, but giving back in ways external to the business, including hosting community groups, collaborating with local nonprofits and businesses. After watching the November Plan Commission meeting and following up with David, I did not find Blue Plate's plans for traffic, parking, and events to be intrusive to surrounding businesses or residents. Blue Plate Catering will be a good complementary partner to many of the community-serving institutions. And I'll use that to segue to some of the concerns that were addressed last time. The first one was parking. There was a significant concern, obviously, having a venue space right next door to another venue space with limited parking. And so we put some time and energy into thinking about this. The first one I'll address, and then the next 3 will be on the next slide, but I've listed them here. So we'll just notify guests ahead of time that there's limited on-site parking and that there's no off-site or on-street parking that's available. Again, I'll talk about those other 3, and then we'll encourage employees to use the bus. We have a couple employees now that do use the bus, and this would cut down their walk from leaving our business to where the bus stop is by a pretty substantial distance. They have to walk over a quarter of a mile currently. So to address the parking, we have been working with our architect to draft a plan for where we would add other spaces. The spaces in blue are what we currently have. The other ones with the plus signs in yellow are obviously what we would add. And then there's bike parking highlighted in green. We're saying between 15 to 20 spaces added. That's going to be dependent upon where some equipment needs to go, like a grease trap, and how we decide to manage some of the spaces. But we're saying between 64 and 69 total. Additionally, I've reached out to a couple of businesses. One of those is right down the street. The other is right next door to it, right down the street. 30 spaces at one, and we have a letter of intent from them that they're willing to enter into an agreement with us, but we're not actioning on it yet, of course, until we hear back from this, and then we wouldn't take occupancy until later on into next year. Those 30 spaces, and then if we decide the additional 10 on top, those would be for our staff to park and for our business vehicles to park in the event that we have an event where there's going to be overlap of parking needs. I'd also like to draw attention to this slide here. So the Loxley, or I think it was Blue Sky back when the Plan Commission meeting happened earlier this year, they were approved for 300 guests with 85 spaces, and we're looking for half of that with right about the same number of spaces. We feel like we're a good ratio there. Traffic also was referenced as a concern, and we both have kids, and we have a deep appreciation for that as individuals who live on streets that sometimes people don't respect the laws on. We currently reside, as I said before, in the Bishop O'Connor Center. Now it's called Holy Name Heights. 9 years ago, it was the back half of the building was converted into apartments, and there's about 50 units that are there. Blue Plate's on the lower level, and these units make up the levels above 2, 3, and 4. And there have certainly been some growing pains. When we first moved into the space, we were the only tenant that was on the back half of the building, and we kind of had the run of the space to ourselves. And then as the tenants came in, we had to make modifications to the way that we ran the business, especially since our kitchen and our office and our operations are right underneath 3 or 4 different units where people are currently residing. And we are in one of those apartments right now renting some space, so we hear what the noise is like. But we have worked hard to adjust to the needs and the requests of not only our landlord, but also of the other tenants that call this space home. I reached out to one of the individuals that lives there, Anne Marie Dunlap, who is a retired physician from Chicago, and she said, "I believe I can speak for my residential colleagues in stating that Blue Plate Catering is a gracious neighbor whose kitchen and managerial staff are always pleasant and mindful of the shared space." And I think what she says there is true. We work hard to make sure that we are respectful of the space. Finally, somebody, I think our neighbor to the south, had referenced a concern about safety with somebody getting drunk and then entering onto his property. So we did a little bit of research. We looked into our consumption numbers. We found that the average number of drinks consumed by a guest at a corporate social event is roughly 1 drink per guest. Most events are going to run about 2.5 hours, so we don't feel like that's enough cause for concern. The Loxley, which is right next door, they were approved for a venue space that has double the capacity, but then also a need for security, and we wouldn't have any events that would be needing security. And then we also reached out to some of our partners that we do off-premise catering at, and I looked for locations that had at least 1 to 2 weddings a week, and I asked them, I reached out to 6 different venues. I said, in the last year, give me an idea of what types of issues you've had with any problems. And of the 6 venues, there's one that's on Pinckney Street in downtown Madison, and then another that's in Sun Prairie, right in the downtown area. They all collectively referenced only a handful of issues, and when I say handful, I mean like 5 or 6. And of those issues, there were a couple of them that had a damage deposit that was kept because the client had done damage to the property. Only one of those was due to a drunk guest who was causing damage, and the lady I spoke to referred to it as the bush incident because an individual had decided to jump into a bush a couple times and cause damage. But nobody reported any issues with neighboring businesses being damaged in any capacity. Also, I wanted to share with you things that we already do at the events that we run. We monitor consumption of alcohol, as I referenced already. We check IDs. We have found that serving shots kind of makes for a mix of not good things, so we just don't serve shots at all at any of our events. And then we are adequately staffing, so if we have a bartending event, we have additional bartenders that are on staff, and depending upon the type of service, we'll have more individuals there if it's a buffet versus a plated meal. Finally, I reached out to Contact at Old Brick, where, if you recall, we had a liquor license for, and I asked her, I said, Patty, I don't want to direct your words, just give me an idea. How is Blue Plate, as somebody that managed the liquor license? Please just send me your feedback. We have this meeting that we're going to be going to, and we want to know what type of a client Blue Plate was to you. And she said, Blue Plate Catering was the exclusive holder of our alcohol license for 15 years and always did a great job with our rental groups. Staff were always happy to see them on site because we knew the event would be handled well, cleanup taken care of, and they would make sure the rental group followed our rules. I don't believe I ever had a complaint about them from the rental group. We would take them back in a minute, and they are still the first caterer I recommend to rental groups looking for great food and great service. I think they would be great neighbors for any business endeavors they pursue because they know this industry inside and out. Finally, in conclusion, thank you. We believe that approving this conditional use permit will provide substantial benefits to the economy, to the surrounding community, and to the city as a whole. We have a long-standing reputation as a company for delivering excellence in food and service and building and maintaining corporate relationships. We are confident that this new venture would reflect our commitment to these high standards and service. Thanks for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. So we have William Cole. He wishes to speak. He's online, yes. Are you ready, Bill?
Yes, can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You have 3
Thank
minutes.
you for the opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We welcome our new neighbors at Blue Plate Catering, and we anticipate being clients of theirs for many of our events. Our concerns echo back to the CUP meeting last month with having another event space next door. I think we're all aware that Blue Plate originally applied and received their CUP as a catering company and then asked to add in this additional business. The concern that the city had, and we would concur, is with the additional traffic. If there's a cup granted for 150 person events and there's 450 people potentially in that neighborhood for an event simultaneously, how is that going to be viewed by the city? We don't want that to impact our primary business, which is only the event space. If the city were to find that all of those people were causing some type of a problem and they needed to restrict things, we wouldn't want to be part of that restriction, because our business is really predicated on the number of allocations we have for attendance now. And if that got restricted, that would severely impact our ability to stay profitable in that space. So that's my main concern. I'd like to, if they are going to be granted an event space, I'd like to know that there would be a required coordination event planning so that we didn't have events at the same time. I didn't hear Blue Plate describe anything about the events they were planning to have, how many are attending usually. I heard the number 100 at one point. That's a lot of events. I don't know if that's how many they're planning to have there. We haven't had any communication directly with them on that, and we haven't seen any plans. So I would just ask that those things be taken into consideration before there was any granting of a large number of people to go to events.
Okay, thank you. Also, Melissa Butcher. Melissa, do you want to speak? Is she there?
I'm here. I think William summarized everything well, so I will be here in the background to answer questions if there are any from the perspective of Loxley.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next we move to a staff report. That's it. Oh no, she's from FACTv. I don't know.
Okay, very good. All right. So this property is in the Anton Drive neighborhood redevelopment plan area. As noted, you did all do an initial review and public hearing for this conditional use permit last month, and it was postponed to today. The proposal is for an event space. In September, Plan Commission approved the original conditional use permit for a catering prep kitchen. And so now the applicants are proposing 3,000 square foot of event space to be used for corporate events. Their documentation in the packet notes that it would be approximately one corporate event per week with approximately 2 social events per month. Attendance is proposed to be a maximum of 150 guests. The applicants previously noted that that most events that they expected would be in the 20 to 40 persons. Events are proposed to be some during the day and evening. Applicants believe that approximately 80% of the events would be corporate and approximately 20% would be social. Alcohol service is proposed. The applicants note that they plan to offer the event space to local nonprofits and community organizations. In contrast to Blue Sky, staff understands, or the Loxley, staff understands that Blue Plates, which the Loxley business focuses more on social events with a stronger focus per their conditional use permit, weddings, quinceañeras, parties, local musicians, comedy nights, ticketed and cover charge events in addition to corporate events. The site is served by Madison Metro Transit D route. There is limited on-street parking in the area. Applicants propose to address the parking concerns by adding additional parking stalls where possible on their site. And then, as noted, they would be proposing to do some shared parking, which Plan Commission has generally been responsive to, with 2 neighboring businesses, one of which would be the neighboring Redeemer City Church. Staff would just like to point out regarding the parking discussions, just to the north of the Loxley in 2022, the Latino Chamber was issued a conditional use permit. They have 37 parking stalls, and they are also permitted to hold meetings and events. Earlier this year, formerly the Blue Sky, but now known as the Loxley, has 85 parking spaces and proposed and allowed to have up to 300-person events with up to 30 staff. And then before you tonight is Blue Plate with 150-person events, up to 30 staff, with approximately 60 parking spaces provided on site, plus the additional off-site parking, which is not noted here. So in terms of the parking ratio here, Blue Plate is providing a higher percentage of parking per amount of guests. Staff also notes that Plan Commission did approve a conditional use permit for this site, 5302 Anton Drive, for Little John's in September 2022. And that conditional use permit did allow for a restaurant, in addition to the catering kitchen, a restaurant for up to 17 persons and event space up to 144 persons. At that time, the plans included parking for just 45 cars. The applicants also noted in the revisions a commitment to maintaining public safety. They've provided some additional information regarding the interior improvements. Staff has proposed the same conditions as last month, which of course Plan Commission is welcome to amend. The addition of number 3 that clarifies that should this conditional use permit be granted this evening, the Little John conditional use permit would no longer remain in effect. So staff does recommend approval with the 13 conditions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I open the discussion for Plan Commissioners. Any question, comments? Gabriela?
Hi, thanks for coming back. Appreciate the presentation to give the extra context, and appreciate the solutions you brought based on our concerns last week. I always think it's best when we have some time to regroup and come back rather than just try to fix it on the fly. I do appreciate that the parking ratio, as I mentioned last time, I think corporate events, my impression would that be parking is probably more of a problem for corporate events because each individual employee might have their own car. So I appreciate that your ratio is even better than something at the Loxley, where more social events, I have to imagine, have a slightly different situation, families carpooling, et cetera. So I think that's good, along with the agreements for parking, and said mostly, so my understanding, mostly corporate events, maybe a couple of social events. Can you describe, just generally speaking, what those social events would be like? People like default to wedding receptions. Are you imagining that you'd ever have a wedding reception, or what do you see that as?
If someone came to us and said we'd like to host a wedding reception, we would happily host a wedding reception as long as it would be within the parameters and it would work with our existing schedule for what we have for off-premise events. I'm actually really excited about the opportunity to take someone that we have an existing relationship, maybe we're catering their wedding at one of those venues that are off-site, and they need a location on the Thursday or the Friday night that's going to be a rehearsal dinner for 30 or 40 people. If there's a rehearsal dinner and it's a welcome party and they're going to invite 150 people, we would also say yes to that, though primarily the experience is that those welcome dinners are much smaller in comparison to the larger wedding itself. So an opportunity for us to cultivate a relationship that's already existing with a client to serve them in another way.
Okay. So unlikely, you do a lot of wedding receptions off-site. That's like the
Yes.
core of your business is doing it
Yeah.
off-site and not on-site. And then, I am not personally as concerned about the traffic. I assume that there would probably be communication with Loxley just on if there was, you say you were going to have a 150-person event, do you anticipate reaching out to the Loxley and just double checking on things and making sure you're all on the same page?
100%, yes. We did reach out to them after the last meeting and are currently involved in communication with figuring out what the best way is to communicate and make it work really well for everybody.
Right. It occurs to me, too, that you having so much parking and not having an event every night of the week, I wonder if there's even an opportunity for potentially you providing some parking to the Loxley for some of their bigger events. So it seems like it could be a good symbiotic relationship.
Agreed.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you explain, most of your corporate event is going to happen in which time frame? Mostly in the afternoon, late afternoon, weekends, I don't know.
David books most of the events, so I'll let him answer.
There will be, if I can do it in percentages, I would say 2/3. It's not a percentage, sorry, it's a fraction. 2/3 of the events would be daytime events.
Daytime, okay.
Corporate trainings, like they want to meet from 7 to 5 and have breakfast and lunch, or do a morning meeting. And then maybe a sixth of the events would be like a cocktail hour event, 3 to 6, somewhere in that range. And then the other sixth being like that corporate holiday party or something like we mentioned in November.
Any other comments, question? Shelley.
Yeah, I have a question. As I said last month, and then I've said it with the Loxley, my concern is that we're bringing businesses into the area that do nothing for the neighborhood other than potentially give them a negative with traffic and parking and everything. And I really appreciate all of the efforts you've made to try to up your parking, and I can tell you are great, responsible citizens. But I keyed into, you said there'd be a substantial benefit to the neighborhood, so I'd like to know more what you mean about that. Then also, you spoke about potential jobs. I assume you say you have a staff of 30. Is that not always adequate for your catering? So are you suggesting you would somehow be able to let the neighborhood know that there are job opportunities for them?
I'll answer the job opportunity one first and then go back to the other one. How will we communicate to people, or how will we disseminate information out to them that there are postings? Well, we have a building that's different than the one that we're currently occupying. And so I could envision that we might have a place to post, that we have jobs that are available. I mentioned that we go to church right down the street, and the clothing drive is just one of the things that we do as a church community, engaging that area. And we are reaching out routinely, communicating to people. I had a mattress that my wife and I purchased that didn't work out, and one of the ways to return the mattress was to reach out to a nonprofit and to get it donated. So yesterday with my dad, I was donating a mattress to a family that was a connection through our church. So I think we have some means through our church family of communicating that there are jobs available through our building that's there, but then using the normal ways. So still posting on Facebook. And I think if people are aware of Blue Plate as an organization because they're driving by it and they're seeing that there's a logo now, that they will draw their attention to places like Facebook and see that there's an opportunity for a job. Does that answer that question?
Right, and you think there will be job opportunities you often need to up the staff that you currently have?
We do, yeah. You're going to say something? Yeah, go ahead. We're originally from Iowa, and we moved to Madison when I was 15, and I worked at a hotel, Best Western, and I was on the banquet setup and service staff. And so the added composition of having events that would be on site would entail things like setup and tear down and additional dishes, things that we don't frequently have with a lot of off-premise catering. So if we have events that are then taking place at Blue Plate, it adds another card to the hand that would then be able to provide for more consistent hours. So I could see that being something that's beneficial for someone like me who was in high school that needs a little bit of a consistent part-time job.
Yeah, and to give you a little bit of an insight into the way our business runs. So during the slower months, we're down to the core group, which is somewhere between 25 to 30 full-time employees. And then as we grow, or as we move into, let's say, like May, June, July, then I begin to ramp up our hiring, and we have a pool of about 40 to 50 part-time staff that we maintain year-round. Most of the time, they're not working any shifts. But then when the summertime hits, it's not uncommon for us to be feeding I would say between 1,200 and 2,000 people on a Friday, Saturday combo. And then depending upon the type of service, we will have anywhere between 50 to 70 people working those events. So we're well beyond the 30 individuals that we have on site at Blue Plate Max to be able to staff those. And one of the things that we try hard to do is to match schedules for people. So we don't utilize all of those 40 additional people that are working part-time, but that's because we prefer to allow our our part-time staff to have really flexible schedules. We know that there are going to be 3 or 4 times throughout the year when they're really going to be needed, and we're going to ask them, please work hard to be there. But if they're only able to work one day every 6 months, I say this when I'm hiring people and interviewing them, I say, that's fine. We really don't mind that, because just like you have a need for an employer that doesn't demand you be there all the time, we have a need for staff that we can't provide for the entire time. So the more qualified individuals that we have, we love to say, if you show up and you do a good job and you're a pleasure to work with, we want to have you there. We wanted you to be a part of our team. And if that means you're just going to help us out 3 times a year, 5 times a year, 12 times a year, whatever works for your schedule, if you do a great job, if you're a pleasure to work with, we're going to work hard to make you a part of our team, because you are so worth having you there. As far as making a substantial impact, so we came across the building because in our drives by on the way back and forth, looking at other buildings, going to church, going home, driving down to get coffee at a coffee shop nearby, we would see the building and see that nothing was happening. And so substantial impact as compared to something like the McDonald's or the Chick-fil-A that I think I saw last month are going to have an impact a little bit further to the south and the west. No, I mean, there's just no way we're going to have an impact like that. But our goal is to get into a building, to occupy that space well, to be a really good presence, and to be kind of an anchor spot. Somebody's not going to be surprised when they see Blue Plate is there in 10, 15, 20 years. It's a lot of energy to move the company, and it's not something that we want to be doing over and over. So I think our presence will contribute to highlight that specific area, and I do think it will have a substantial impact. And I don't think it's just Blue Plate that's going to have an impact. I think the Loxley is going to have an impact as well. But together, collectively, and other corporations will highlight this part of this community that, for the most part, like Little John's was trying to do, just doesn't really get a lot of attention.
If I can also add, Josh had asked, I think in September, had asked about that the Little John's was going to have like the pay what you can restaurant. Have we ever considered anything like that? And I remember saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, that I was actually really excited about having like the little free pantry version, but a little free cooler. So I have, after 20 years, I have thrown away enough food for many, many lifetimes. And so any opportunity that I have to be able to not do that, for me, is a huge win. And so in an area that I hear about in church every other month with what are ways that we can serve the area, what are the ways that we can serve the area, I'm really excited about being able to serve the area in that way. So I do actually think that it will be a large, like a substantial impact that will be helpful to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Appreciate it.
So I want to tell you that, in my other job, I have the opportunity to go to several corporate events. You were part of those events, and I know your company for many years because of those corporate events and the reputation that you have in town. So, and I would say thank you for choosing Fitchburg. I don't think that is going to be an issue. I am a math person, and looking on page 10 of 12, that ratio about parking space comparing the two places. That one was okay, I got it. I don't have any concern about that anymore. And I think it's going to be a complement of business, because most of your businesses maybe you're going to compete on one wedding every other time, but most of the business between Loxley and you are going to be a complement. You are targeting a different clientele, they are targeting a totally different clientele. So I don't see any competition of, I think the two businesses are complement. So I don't have any, and I think that you can provide job opportunity for the young people. They are living in that neighborhood. They can walk to your place. You know what I mean? So that one will be great. So I don't have any issue with this. So I don't know. Any other comments?
Okay. I'll move approval of conditional use CU 2571-24 with the 13 conditions included by staff.
Second.
Okay.
Can I just give maybe a friendly amendment? I think in the Loxley, one of the conditions was no on-street parking, which I don't have any idea how that's ever enforced, but to be consistent, should we include that here also?
You are correct. There was a condition for the Loxley.
But we cannot, how we can,
I don't know how we
That's up
enforce
to
it.
you.
It's just, it was
think-
part of Loxley's, so.
Do you want to speak? Okay.
On that issue, there's a carriage drive that, abuts both properties. And I'll just mention, right now, like there's construction trucks, flatbeds, all these vehicles that are there that don't belong there. You can park overnight, but why are they there? And I think those should be, they should be available for these businesses, for people to, it's a whole block. But like I say, there's a flatbed there, and I don't know where these are coming from, but it's not. They shouldn't be.
The
not a
city
parking
is
spot.
aware, and we are going to try to look at that. We discussed that internally.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for the call out on that. That's good context.
Okay.
I'd be okay.
I'm comfortable including that language, the exact same language we had for the Loxley. I remember we talked about that. I appreciate you calling attention to it. So I think if we could include a mimic of that language for 14, I'd be in support.
I'll second that with a friendly, as a friendly amendment.
So basically, I believe, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, it was basically just a request of what you're committing to now, that parking will be included to on-site premises, but there was an expectation there as well that they could strike agreements with other private property. I think that might have even been the language, something like on private property. So it sounds like exactly what you're committing to. We just want to see it in the stipulation so that if for some reason, that were to arise, we have it in the language.
Makes sense.
Okay, so what is so weird? Who made the?
So I'll move approval of conditional use CU 2571-24 now with the 14 conditions with the one added for private property restricted or language of restricting parking to their property.
Second.
Okay. Any additional comments? Question? No. Okay. All those in favor of the conditional use CU-2571-24 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Fitchburg.
So next we move to item 5B is the final plat FP-2575-24 request by Sherry Shu, agent of Fitchburg Lands LLC, to obtain a final plat approval to replat a portion of the 4 addition to Terravesa to create 28 buildable lots on property located off Lacey Road. So do we have anyone speaking on this item? No.
Nope, I'll just take this one.
Thank you.
This one is pretty straightforward. If you want to pop me up, Scott. So this is in Terravesa in the 4th edition. And the 4th edition, I think Zach's getting building permits from the 4th edition. And what is proposed here is a replat of some existing lots and then a new plat of some outlots. So zoning, staff has reviewed the plat in compliance for smart code zoning. Everything is okay there. This is all in T4. They will have to provide some park improvement fees before anything is finalized for building permits. I will just point out these are some existing lots right here. And what's happening is the proposal is to make the lots slightly smaller, so it's increasing the number of lots here on the western side. And then similar thing, there's, I can't remember how many lots was here, but 3 here. And so this is just making slightly smaller lots. And then up here, this is just platting the outlot. So we're going from an outlot platting that and then taking 13 lots and changing it into 20 lots is what we're doing. This is by AY Development, which is Sherry Yu. She has been doing a lot of the duplexes. They look kind of like townhomes. She's generally bringing those in right around the low 400s. So staff does recommend approval with a total of 12 conditions, and I will try to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions? Comments? Okay.
I'll move approval of, easy for me to say, I'll move approval of final plat FP 2575-24 with the 12 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the final plat, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. Okay. Next, 5C, ADR Doja Church Expansion. Request by John Zimon, agent for 2700 Innovation Parkway, LLC, to obtain an architectural design review approval for an expansion to the existing church facility on property associated with 2700 Innovation Parkway. And we have Sean Simon. He's online? Yes? Okay, John, you can go ahead the next one. Hello?
Hello, how are you?
Fine.
Good. Can you hear me then?
Yes.
Wonderful. I won't take much of your time. I'll keep this brief. Yeah, we're looking for feedback and hopefully approval on an addition to an existing building at 2700 Novation Parkway. The building has really been repurposed a number of years ago by Doxa Church, and that congregation has grown quite a bit, actually, and we are doing a pretty major interior renovation, but there's also a building addition that's part of the project. For instance, on the south side, which is really the primary side that faces the right-of-way, that's where most of that addition occurs, and that's about 1,060 square foot of building. And on the west side, there's also a small addition, which is primarily for service use, bringing equipment in and out of the auditorium, equipment and furniture. Our intent from a design perspective is very straightforward. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. In fact, we really want to play off what's there in terms of materials and geometry and the palette. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at the submittal. I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and I'll leave it at that. And I look forward to hearing any questions and your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And also Chris Dawson is here with us too to answer questions if needed. Do you want to say anything else, Chris? Or no? You want to add anything else? Or?
Just here for questions that might be directed my way. Thanks.
Okay. So we're going to a staff report.
So as noted, this is a larger remodeling project, and because there's some improvements on the south front facade, and then on the west side, there's a small addition. They're here before Plan Commission for architectural design approval. The property is located at the Novation campus, BG zoning. The proposal does detail some new plantings around the new front addition, largely to replace the existing vegetation. Applicants did state an interest to preserve any existing vegetation. Then all utility and equipment and dumpsters would be designated to be screened. But staff does not have, staff recommends approval with the 9 conditions.
Okay. Question, comment? Shelley.
Just one question. In the submission, it says that there's going to be more glass space than usual. Are you doing anything? I don't know if this is a bird flying into the glass issue, if there's a see-through. Are you doing anything to the glass to try to minimize that? I don't know who I'm supposed to ask that of, but yeah. So
no, that's okay. It's a good question. At this point, we are not. If there's ordinance or a reason for us to be looking at that, we certainly will. But at this point, we're not. The primary intent or primary, I think, reason for someone talking about more glass or more windows in the building is that in areas of the building where the addition is not occurring, we are adding fenestration. So we, aside from the addition itself, we are adding windows elsewhere in the building to daylight some of the interior spaces that we're creating and or using differently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment, question? No? Okay.
I'll move approval of ADR for Doxa Church expansion.
Second.
All those in favor of the ADR say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Next, we move to 5D. Is the pre-application PDD for the Olive Tree condos. Is a request by Aisha Liaquat and Ali Chaudhry, agent for the Who Holdings LLC, to obtain a pre-application review for a proposed residential development on property associated with 2735 Rimrock Road. So we have a couple of people here. So Aisha, are you online?
Yes, I'm online and I'm able to speak to it briefly.
Go ahead.
Perfect. So we submitted our documentation a couple of weeks ago to DNS covering all aspects of the planning process. So we are able to talk through any of the technical questions that there may be, but Deanna, did you want to bring the group up to speed on the recent changes we've made?
Yeah, sure. Should I just go ahead and give the department report?
Okay, you can do that. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, where we are right now, the properties were incorporated into the city of Fitchburg in 2022 in Southdale. The properties were approved for a minor comprehensive plan amendment. You might remember that minor comprehensive plan amendment moved the property from low density residential to medium density residential. And also earlier this year, Plan Commission approved a CSM that would combine the two existing lots. So in the next step of our process, the applicant is going to move into planned development district zoning for this condominium development. What the CSM did is take two lots and create one lot. And so because this is because the individual units do not have public street access, this would be a condominium development of 8 single-family structures, and then the remaining structures would be townhome structures. The units are proposed to be 2 stories high. The proposed parking includes 22 exterior stalls and 20 garage stalls. 2 of the exterior stalls could be available for visitor parking. Dedicated bike parking would be provided up here at the front. And then also right next to that is where they would have the consolidated mailboxes, which are a standard requirement for all new development. Each unit would also have the ability to store their own bicycles, of course, in the 2-car garages. In general, the massing of the homes are similar to the neighborhood and similar as what we would have expected. There is a bus stop that is on Rimrock. The applicants will need to work with Madison Metro regarding any upgrades to that bus stop as the project moves forward. The plans intend for existing trees and vegetation to remove. Staff does suggest that if there are any trees of quality and health that could be protected, that we would look at that. There will be further considerations for architectural design, of course, materials, landscaping, lighting, additional site design, once we go into the next phase of the planned development district with this general implementation plan. So what is proposed right now would be a private street with public water and public sanitary sewer lines located within that private street area. The white is showing sidewalks, just for your reference, and then the detention basin would be located down here towards the corner, and the reason for that is the lowest portion of the site. So from there, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. Otherwise, Chad and Aisha are available.
Okay. Good evening.
Okay, any question, comments? I have a question. After this step, because we went through several steps with this property, this parcel. So the PDD, and then what is after the PDD?
Yeah, great question. So we'll do Plan Development District, the general implementation plan, and then we'll do the specific implementation plan. We have a 2-step process for our Plan Development Districts. What we'll do is do the architectural design review with the specific implementation plan. We can do that together at the same time. And then once they have gotten all their condo documents in order and recorded, then they can move into the building permits.
So how long is it going to take to do all of this? Aisha, how long is it going to take?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, we could, we've missed the window for the Plan Development District for Plan Commission in January, but they could come for Plan Development District General Implementation Plan in February. They could turn right around and come for the specific implementation plan in March. Then they'll need to work with Public Works on, the public improvements. There will be public water and sewer lines here. And from there, once they get that public infrastructure in place, then they can start construction. So that's kind of the general outline for us. There's, of course, a lot of different things that you all have to work through.
Yeah, right now most of the things are technical. We have tried to be as close as possible as it was discussed in the previous meetings. We have kept the 12 townhomes, 8 single-family homes, and the orientation of the buildings is almost the same which we have shown to you and the neighbors. And these current plans I have shown to the neighbors in a informal setting, and they are okay with these settings. And the rest is technical. Our engineers and architect is also online today. So if you have any questions.
Okay. No, I think I am happy that this project is moving forward. I sent a couple of emails to Aisha and said, where are you with this project? I haven't heard. And I am happy to see that we are moving forward with this project because we need this housing. And it's a great location for those. So.
There's only one thing.
Sure. There's been I was going to quickly add, there's been a lot of work in the back end. So background, we've been working with our architecture and engineering teams. We actually did receive some communication from the Metro side as well on the requirements that we're going to be adhering to. In addition, we've been working with Public Works as well on all of their requirements. So there's been a lot of work going on in the background, and now we just need to bring it forward and get it through approvals.
Okay. So we don't need to do any formal action.
There's no formal action this evening.
Okay.
Any just
There's only one thing which I think sometime back we discussed at this time, if we can combine some of the processes together in one hearing to expedite it, so we can get everything done before the start of summer.
I think it's very possible to get you through your planning approvals before the start of summer. Of course, you'll have to bring the Plan Development District, the General Implementation Plan forward first, and then you can bring the Plan Development District specific implementation plan with the architectural design review. And theoretically, depending on where your engineering and architectural team are, I mean, those could come in February and then follow up in March or April.
Okay, so any comments that you want to make? This is your opportunity. Are you okay with this pre-application? Okay. So thank you for coming, okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so next we move to 5E. It's an ordinance 224-0-37 is creating an outdoor lighting regulation by creating Chapter 28 of Fitchburg General Code of Ordinance. So we have here Ben, isn't it?
Ben is on.
Oh, it's on. He's going to do this, Ben? Or you?
I can just, actually, staff has been working on this for several months.
Yes.
This proposed ordinance. And the impetus comes out of a request from the Resource Conservation Committee. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Right now, it's proposed to go into a new chapter, Chapter 28. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. And then also, of course, Ben, and maybe Ben, you want to offer any comments?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, what we have in front of you here is really meant to be some kind of very basic lighting standards, you know, for any kind of commercial industrial development. A lot of the numbers and kind of standards / requirements that are in this proposed ordinance are from, you know, neighboring municipalities. I think that's just an important thing to note. Of course, you know, it's important that, you know, what's in this ordinance is going to be something that, you know, lighting designers can look to, and you know, there's products available that are going to meet these requirements and standards that are outlined in here, but generally it's you know, just the highlights, I guess. It's full cutoff fixtures for any lighting, establishing a light trespass standard. So basically, if you know you have adjacent properties, only so much light can trespass across the property from, you know, one property to the other. And then there's just some basic lighting standards for parking lots, as well as kind of a process for certain uses. You know, for example, a sports field or something that has, you know, more lighting than just a parking lot would. So yeah, there's a whole process in there, so we can work through kind of those non-typical lighting plans. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any other questions or provide any additional information if there's questions on any parts of this proposed ordinance.
Yes, we have a couple of questions. So Josh?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm curious. I think I was reading in there that single and dual family homes are exempt from this policy. Is that correct?
Yeah, this
Yes.
is what it's
That is correct.
Is that standard? I find it. I looked at something like the crossings where at the corner of Summer Highway and Lacey. They've got sconces that are facing straight up into the night sky on every single duplex, and I'm just really curious why something like that would be exempt from this, and why we wouldn't be able to have a similar level of commitment and kind of uniformity in those developments.
Yeah.
I could take, of course, we don't do architectural design review for that. So for individual single-family homes and duplexes, so in our standard process, it's not something, we don't currently look at lighting and the details of that. It's just not something.
When the developer come to us with a development plan, we can guide them and say, we will prefer that you don't, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We have that.
At the planning start stage.
We should. I think we should recommend this. This is what I say. I have the same issue.
Can we put that as a condition on, especially some of these larger developments? Can we put as a condition that their final, lighting choices have to abide by this ordinance?
We certainly could. Yes, we certainly could. Within our development review process, require that the individual homes have lighting that complies with this ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I am a developer, I want to understand this. If I am a developer and I read this ordinance chapter, and this language is going to be there, so, this is the first thing that I'm going to go and check out the ordinance for dark. This is dark sky. So the language will be there like an exemption. So how we are going to have other document that is not conforming with this. So this is what I want to understand. Yeah,
I'm curious if we remove that language. We're not going to see one-off houses, right? So those are going to kind of slip through no matter what. But when we have these big developments, I would like us to have the ability to ask those developers to make choices that align with this. So I think we already have kind of an infrastructure that would allow many of the one-offs to not be assessed in this manner. But to the mayor's point, I would love to not conflict then with when we ask them to abide, it still meets the language of the ordinance.
Yeah, when we come.
My question would be how are you going to enforce that? Because isn't it already existing homes are going to be exempt from this? So the crossing or whatever condo place that you're upset about isn't going to be covered under this anyway.
No, I know.
We have exemptions for the tree policy for single-family homes and private property. I think that gets a little bit intrusive. I understand wanting to do that, but if somebody puts a flagpole up in their yard and sticks a light on it, are you going to fine them $100 a day till they take the light off the flag? This could turn into neighbor versus a lot of time. And my other question for this is who's this director that's mentioned through this whole thing who's going to be the person who's in charge of enforcing all of this?
That would be the zoning administrator.
You.
So
do you have time to go through the entire city? And
I'm not asking for existing structures. I'm asking for a go forward. I appreciate that we're not going to be able to change existing things. I'm asking for a go forward. And I'll be honest, as somebody who lives in a neighborhood where I love how dark the neighborhood is, and we have neighbors who make a choice where it shines into our windows like the sun at night, I would love the ability to have some recourse. If they've worked with us, that's been fine. But if somebody put a light on a flagpole and it was trespassing on my windows at night and affecting my sleep, you bet I would love the ability to say something about that and do something about it. So I'm here for that, honestly. I can appreciate that. I don't want to open it up to, tit for tat. And, I don't know if we need to add something that says that, I think there's appeals processes in the language. I think there's opportunities for people to state their cases. And I would imagine that the staff is going to be, understanding for exemptions and things like that. But I think if we're going to commit to something like this, and this neighborhood is going to still be a lot of single-family homes and a lot of the developments like we saw tonight, where it's duplexes and everything else, I would like everybody to commit to this because there's just a lot of benefit.
Is this something that's better to put into a neighborhood covenant as the new neighborhoods are developed. That way the city doesn't have to enforce it, and it can be done within the guides of the violating their homeowners association versus.
But most of the, I don't know, not every neighborhood has that, you know what I mean?
Well, if they're existing, they're exempt from this anyway, correct?
Yeah, no,
You mean going forward, not everything's covered by an HOA, right? That there'll be a decent amount of development that won't be
that
captured
they don't
in
have
there.
those neighborhood association now. But I envision this like, like in the case today, Aisha, when she come with the program, we can say, Aisha, make sure that, your development, comply with this, because she's going to build 20 units, you know what I mean? Make sure.
Yeah.
Or Veridia, working now on, what is Highland?
Yeah, I
we
mean,
can talk to them and say,
Yeah.
we recommend that you,
Those are kind of a different case because they're planned development district, and with the zoning, that would normally be something that we would definitely expect when a project like the Rimrock, we currently do expect dark sky.
Okay.
So since we don't do ADRs for individual homes and duplexes, what's I guess I don't see how this is going to be facilitated.
We don't have a good way. We do not have a good way to look at individual homes and the lighting. I think the bigger problem with all of this is that we don't have the staffing after construction is complete to confirm that the lighting conforms.
Yeah, but
we just don't have the
So
staff.
we're relying on people to raise a complaint, basically.
Everything's a complaint based.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I'll jump in there too. So all of these complaints come to my desk first. I'm the one and only who work with Deanna to do all of these. So anything that, and it's not just lighting, but anything that's in your Chapter 22 zoning code comes across us. So it is a stretch on staff resources. It's definitely achievable if that's Plan Commission and Council's direction that they want to go, if it's a priority here. But if it's in the code, then it's something that we have to enforce. If someone raises a complaint, I can't just say, I don't want to enforce that. So that's kind of what we're taking on here.
So if somebody's building a house in if I buy a lot in Fitchburg and I'm building a single-family home, I don't have to go through ADR. What's the mechanism by which I find out that I'm required to have all of these foot candles and all of this measurement done before I buy fixtures for my new house?
I think that's a big issue because in order for us to confirm that you are in compliance with the code, we would have to have a lighting plan. We'll have to have all the cut sheets, and it would have to be reviewed during the building permit process.
The building permit, process.
So it's not something that we do right now, and it's not information that's generally provided at the building permit level.
But we can provide that information. We can say, we recommend that you follow this, isn't it?
I mean, you could, but you are going to be asking, in order for a builder to tell us as staff that they are in compliance with the code, they are going to have to provide a lighting plan. They're going to have to provide this information, right? They're going to have to provide a lighting plan, and you've all seen those, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a whole bunch of little numbers all over the plan to show that there's not light spill over.
Okay.
So you would be asking, going forward, every single-family home to provide that.
So how do we bridge that gap then? How do we not allow these larger, many unit developments that are 1 and 2 family units, where we do have an opportunity right now to have a say in that? How do we hold them at least to account and appreciate that not wanting city to currently take on adding a lighting plan and assessment of a lighting plan to each single family home freestanding?
Yeah, I think that the mayor noted that we do that at the zoning level, the plat level, the plan development district level.
Recommend, not the word require, and I think, how do we make sure they know it's absolutely required, not just recommended?
Because I think I have seen it. There are we put some conditions.
Yeah, we've used regular condition.
But
dark sky.
to go back to the countering language then, can we put an asterisk on the exemption for single and dual family homes that says, other than those captured in a zoning agreement, so that somebody can't come to this and say, well, I'm building a bunch of duplexes, so I'm exempt? Can we just hearken to what we're describing here in the exemption language?
Yeah, I think that we can, you and I, Ben, can take a look at how we can do that.
Yeah, sure thing.
That'd be great. I really appreciate it. And totally acknowledging that I'm not trying to get city staff to do every house here and enforce every house and things of that nature. But I do think that where we can capture this in process and make it cohesive is going to make this have far more of an effect, especially in the type of community and development we see.
I would wonder what our city attorney's opinion would be of having a fine structure for violations of this that would apply to some and not all.
I think it's a good point.
I mean, you can't have some people who it's okay for them to violate it and other people are going to get fined $250 a day because it's the third time we've told them.
Well,
I think for a corporate, when you're talking about commercial buildings, when somebody is willingly non-compliant, I think those fees are probably responsible. But I think when you're talking about a homeowner who has to find an electrician who can come and rewire everything and put in new fixtures because they didn't know, and in the meantime they're getting thousands of dollars of fines until they can get it
But
done.
I think there's an appeals process here as I'm reading it that would understand that if they're showing that they're working through that and have written commitments from an electrician coming in a month, that hopefully we would be giving them the leeway to do that.
Or it's not unusual. It's not unusual with the new law to have an initial applicability date. So it says when it's going to first apply. So you'd say it first applies to new construction after a certain date, if that's what you want. But I mean, that's not an unusual thing.
Okay, I have other question here, clarification. On number 9 on the exempt, it's a right of way of lighting, including public street lights. So I have a question. So does it mean that if we are installing public street lights, we shouldn't comply with this one?
As it's written right now, I believe that Public Works makes every effort possible to meet the dark sky full cutoff, but I think some of the requirements in here aren't particularly applicable to public roadway lights, right? When we start talking about the specific requirements for foot candles, for light spill, I think this is acknowledging, not that staff doesn't want to have full cutoff dark sky lights, but that some of these requirements just aren't workable in the public right-of-way.
Okay, I have
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Yeah, I don't get it, but okay. So, what is the other question that I have is about the penalties. You mentioned here that they talk about $100 and no more than $500. This is what is the metric here? Is $100 per day, or is $100 and $500? I want to understand that. And is this applicable to residential and commercial, or is only, is the penalties applied to every development? It doesn't matter you are a commercial or you are a multifamily.
It says in the first bullet point.
Yeah, I would say those penalties are only applying to those projects that went through the architectural design review process and had their lighting plan reviewed by city staff. So if it was something that was reviewed by city staff and what was constructed wasn't what was submitted, then that's where I think those penalties could come in. And as far as the $100 to $500 range, I think that's kind of a common thing in the city ordinance to have a range. I suppose just depending on the severity of the issue, but certainly that could be something that's adjusted.
In the first bullet point, it says that
Where?
each day under section 28.11 or -11,
Oh, I'm missing one.
it says that each
Page.
day during which the violation continues shall construe a separate offense. And then the daily fee for the offense is
Oh,
100 to
okay.
500.
Each day, okay.
So that can add up very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend putting some guidelines around the 100 to 500, so it's not just someone's decision on how much you're fining people per day. Like, if you have one light, is it 100? If you have 50 lights, is it 500? I mean, how are you determining what that fine is? And how are you keeping it equitable?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can discuss that with our city attorney.
Okay, I have another question for clarification on section 28.9, a special permit. Item 1, applicant may submit an application to the director for a special permit. Under this section for lighting system, what does it mean? What is a special permit? Can you provide an example?
Yeah, sure. So let's say there's a sports field or something that's going to have, lighting that's, not something that's standard for a building. So think about even like, some of the lights that are at the tennis court or playing fields out at, some of the parks throughout the city. So there they've got, this special type of lighting that, frankly, it's, it's more high powered lighting than you would typically see, but at the same time, you can't play baseball or whatever in the evening without it. So it's kind of necessary, I guess, for a certain use. That would be an instance where a special permit would be considered. And with the special permit process, we would basically want to see that, a written narrative from the applicant that, they're using the best available technology, and they're putting forth their best effort to comply with the intent of the ordinance.
Okay, it's like, okay, I get it. It's like, this is what I understand. It's like a special event happening in the city, in a park, and they need to bring a special lights. This will be a special permit.
You could think of like the softball fields at McGaw, I think is what he was getting at, right? Those lights are broad, so you get a lot of light, but they're also not on overnight. So, right. But they wouldn't meet that compliance because you can't have you have to have lights right over the top of the field, which is not possible.
And I think we've also had some discussions with Edgewood.
Okay.
Edgewood would probably, their proposed development on Lacey would probably need a special permit.
But then even in those is my understanding that knowing I've been part of an organization that rents McGaw, right? And there's a very strict, get emails all the time about shutting off the lights by a certain time, right? So is that in a lot of those situations where you have an approved exemption, and especially for like an applicational light that's particularly bright, I think then the city also has the ability to say, you can use these, but till 10 or 11 at night or something like that, right? And they have to be shut off.
Yep, I'm sure that we can put some conditions on as many necessary for any special permit.
Okay.
But if special permit versus an event permit, right? Because one of my questions was temporary, there's a definition for temporary lighting, I think, but then it's only used, I think, in the exemption, and it's temporary lighting for emergency purposes. So that's what I was wondering, if you have a special event when you need a really, a light that might not technically fit this, but it isn't for emergency services. I'm wondering why emergency services is in the exemption for temporary lighting.
Yeah, I think that's probably just because it was the one that honestly we thought of. There's instances where, maybe there's a car accident at night and they need to light up the scene or something. So that kind of a thing could happen, certainly, and it does. But as far as the event lighting, that does raise a good question. I think it may not be fully captured in the language at this stage.
And I had one other question. Now this light isn't on the outside, but that that horrendously bright light at Park Bank that is like eye piercing. Would this apply to that? It's because the light's not on the outside, but certainly it's illuminating.
Well, you can go ahead, Deanna.
I don't know. The Park Bank has been ever since I've been here, a long-standing issue.
Okay.
We tried to regulate it as a sign, and we were not able to regulate it as a sign. I don't think that, in my opinion, Ben, I don't think that it's going to fall under as outdoor lighting in this particular case. I think they've kind of circumvented is my.
No, and I'm not familiar with that light. So maybe like Deanna says, it's not even considered an outdoor light. Again, I don't know. But if that light were to cause light trespass over the
it definitely does.
The standard that's outlined.
It's incredibly egregious. I do have to say that I don't disagree with the fact that if something's enclosed in a building but coming through glass, that light is ridiculous from an indoor light perspective. So.
What's he talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to mention is that this ordinance is going to CEDA and RCC, so maybe it's going to come back to us, okay? So, any other comments? So we.
You can vote on it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we can vote, but so I'm going to tell you that it's going to 2 more, committees. Okay, are we ready to move forward with this with all the recommendation
So we're voting on this with recommendations that we've included in this discussion?
I don't know, Deanna. It took note.
Okay. So there's some things that, of course, Ben and I would have to work
Clarification
through
point. Yeah.
here. Yeah. So the first thing that I have on my notes was some addressing an asterisk on lighting for 1 and 2 family homes and what does that look like. We'll probably need to speak with the city attorney on that one, just because of this issue that some new single family homes may fall under, if they fall under a PDD or another kind of development like the Rimrock. Other ones might not, right? And I can kind of think, they're just a single family lot without any particular zoning or ADR. So there's some questions there. Zach mentioned some issue to relook at the range of fines here. Should it just be $1? Should we figure out how we determine whether it's $100 or $500? So I got that one. There was a discussion about temporary lighting. Should we look at this as not just emergency services, but then how does like a festival or an event, a temporary event look like? And then the last one I wrote down was take a look at that Park Bank lighting, to see if we can.
Oh, the big sign?
Yeah, the supernova white Park Bank sign that shines out the window.
A lot of people have complained about that. And it's a distraction for drivers. This is what I heard. Yeah.
I don't know how it's not a safety issue, I'll be honest, because it floods out other, I would argue, streetlights and
But
signals.
it's inside the property. So.
I think we could probably build something that would make that a safety issue, I'll be honest, especially at an intersection like that. I find it
Yeah, I know.
surprising.
We heard a lot of complaint about, the complaint that I heard is a distraction for drivers. But that's it. Okay.
Deanna, I don't know if it's important to vote today, but this doesn't go till CETA until January 23rd and council till February 11th. So our next meeting is before then.
This is true.
So I don't know if it's worth it waiting and
say postpone maybe until next month for
we
them
can
to do
take a
their
look
research.
at some changes.
That's certainly fine on my end
Yeah,
to
okay.
postpone.
It's okay, Ben?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the comments and feedback.
I'll move to postpone ordinance 2024-037 to the, I believe it's the January
What is?
21st meeting.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of postponing the ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Thank you, Ben. So
Thanks,
next
everyone.
thank you, bye. 5F, our last one. Resolution R-217-24, granting an underground electric easement on Outlot 5 in Crescent Crossing. Okay, what is this?
This is a request from Public Works to grant MG&E an easement to allow for electrical service to a lighting box. This is related to streetlights along Lacey. So staff just recommends approval.
I move to approve resolution R-217-24.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so next we move to report from department, and Diana, you're going to provide, I don't know, you have an update first, and then you move forward with the neighborhood plans?
Yeah. Tonight, I just wanted to provide, in your packet, I provided our most recent documentation. We're moving as quickly as possible to...
Very slow.
Very slow.
This is the reality.
I understand. Staff is moving as quickly as we can
It's tough, yes.
to move the neighborhood plans forward. So I've attached to your document to your packet what we were planned to present at the Greenfield Neighborhood Plan earlier this month. Staff made the hard decision to actually postpone that after staff received a petition from Greenfield residents, a very lengthy petition, and staff is working on crafting a response to that petition. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about that petition too. Let me just go grab that quick.
Are you able to share that petition somehow?
Yeah, we can. Okay. It didn't get in your packet, but I will share it, and we're working on addressing the comments specifically. We didn't want to put the steering committee in a difficult position to have a very large crowd of opposition tied to this petition without having some very clear responses to it. In addition to that petition, the same day we received another document from the Wabeso Wetland Group that expressed their concerns and their list of requirements also. So staff's working through those two documents so that we can address those concerns in the best way possible. So, but I'm happy to share that too with you.
And also, when you send the response, you can share that with this commission.
Oh, sure.
I want to mention something. Some of the concern, for the people that they don't know, when we develop the Terravesa neighborhood plan, we have a lot of issue regarding the concern about the wetland, especially for the people of the town of Down, and how the runoff is going to the Wawisa Lake. Maybe you, Carol, you were part of that. And the city implemented a lot of, monitoring in Terravesa for the runoff of the water. So we have already implemented some system that we can apply to the same area. So I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel. I think we already showing, and also you put an amendment to do some monitoring with the.
The USGS, the Swan Creek Monitoring Station.
So we are monitoring a lot of the runoff that go to the Wawisa Lake, through, especially from Terravesa. So I think we can replicate that model in this area too. So
For
I want to
context,
make that comment.
for context, can we understand, and you can include this when you share it out, but what percentage of homeowners roughly do we feel like signed on to this petition as well? I'd be curious to know that.
I think we can count.
We can get a rough number.
Okay. Yeah,
It's
even
gonna be
an estimate is good.
Yeah,
to understand.
it's going to be difficult because some of the petitioners here are not necessarily in the exact study area.
Exactly, are from different parts of the city.
Oh, okay.
So
Gets on there too.
yeah,
Oh, really?
I think
You know what you can use? You can use ChatGPT and put this document and say, look for the
Yeah, but it's not going to be able to read.
and duplicate, and it's going to do it for you.
Don't do it. It's not going to be able to read people's handwriting.
I am giving some options.
Can I,
yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Who circulated the petition and who submitted?
There was a group. I don't know that there was a particular name that provided it. It came to the city clerk.
It's the Greenfield neighborhood and Magog neighborhood, the two neighborhoods.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I think you're spot on. There's a good model going forward with the Northeast Neighborhood Plan and Terravesa of how we can address.
Yeah.
And we already have addressed many of those concerns, I think. But I think there are some tweaks that we can do. Mm-hmm.
So do you know when are you planning to have the next meeting?
Yes, in January. It's not scheduled yet, but the next steering committee for Greenfield will be in January. Then we are looking for our final steering committee for Greenfield, hopefully in February. And then there'll be one more open house for Greenfield. So those are all the formal public meetings until we have the final document and we start that referral process and circulating that through the different committees and commissions.
Yeah, because we need to refer out to several committees, isn't it?
I would imagine we will refer out to several committees and commissions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions about that piece? So right now, staff has, and the consultant has been working through stormwater, visions and goals, traffic, utilities, where what this document is showing is having a lot of the utility work figured out. Pretty straightforward. I do want to spend a little bit of time. Also included is draft chapter 2. This would be actually a chapter that would go into the neighborhood plan with the visions and goals, design guidelines. And so this is laying out those visions, goals, and strategies here for you.
Yeah, it looks
So I encourage you, I'm not going to walk all the way through this tonight, but I encourage you to offer suggestions, comments. You can always email me, Brad, the team, if there's any questions or concerns. As we move closer to that actual draft document, I will bring these different pieces and parts forward to you all. Yeah.
Okay, any question, comments? Shelley, you want to say something?
I just had one question. How much acreage is in the study area now? I mean, not what's proposed, but what is there now?
What is the acreage of the study area itself? Good question.
It's like a 7 something.
979 acres.
But how much of it is ag? Currently ag?
Oh.
That's what farmland.
I'm
just trying, because I'm curious to compare it to what the proposed map is going to end up with.
Well, you're going to end up for very little ag.
Okay.
Because we're doing a neighborhood plan.
Okay. I was just wondering how much it shrinks, but okay. That can be another
Pretty much
time.
it all goes away.
Oh, okay. Now I understand why the petition.
We're doing a neighborhood plan,
Yeah, okay.
right? We're the goal of the future urban development area, which is shown here in blue, which is Greenfield, was designated in 2006. This was always to be a future urban neighborhood, and so we have incorporated agrihood, that concept, into this neighborhood, but it is intended to be a neighborhood with new development. It's not intended to remain agriculture. That said, I think it's very important, and even as we work with our community, just because this neighborhood plan is developed does not mean any landowner has to change. Every single landowner that currently farms can continue to farm for the next 1,000 years if that's what they want to do, right? We're not telling anybody that they need to do anything. What we're telling people, if council would adopt this plan, is if you do want to develop, we have a roadmap ahead of us, right? Where we've looked at the land uses, we've looked at the infrastructure, we've looked at the sewer and water lines. So everything fits together, and we don't have just sprawl and anything goes. That's why we do.
It will be nice to, because I think people think about this neighborhood plan that they're a set stone, okay? And it will be nice to mention in the plan that this is a plan that is going to guide us for the future, but it doesn't mean that the future in 10 or 20 years, this is the future that we envision today for 10 to 20 years. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the future. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But because this is the people think that, it's in the neighborhood plan, we need to stick with that. It's a plan that was developed 10, 15 years ago, and a lot of things have changed, So we need to be careful to say, and this is our plan that guides us, This is something that we envision, all of us today, how this area will look like, But it doesn't mean that, I don't know, something could happen in 10 years that this look totally different and this plan could be obsolete or we have to change drastically. I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is important to recognize that our neighborhood plans, our comprehensive plan, these are policy documents to help us make decisions. Yeah. And of course, we can't foresee the future. I don't think 10 years ago when North Stoner Prairie was done, anybody could have ever envisioned something like COVID happen and work from home that basically eliminated the office, the mixed office use building, right? I don't think anybody could have even envisioned that change. And so it is important to recognize that the world can drastically change after a plan is developed, but that's why we do have a very public process, the minor comp plan process, that comes to you all as plan commissioners, comes to council with a significant opportunity for public input. And you all look to our policy documents and then make a decision if this is right for our community.
And the other thing that I was discussing with Mike and looking at the land use of some of our parcels, that's something that this is where it's important that the revision of the comp plan of the zoning code, because there is a lot of land use that is office mixed use. We know that this is not going to happen, So we have a lot of parcels that they are, the future land use is that. So that's something that we need to address in the future. I don't know if it's going to be through the comp plan revision or through the zoning code. I don't know how you're going to, but something that we need to revise all of that infill parcels that we have that they're not going to be developed the way they are originally intended to be because, as you mentioned, COVID happened. You know what I mean? So.
Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to take any comments, questions, and also you all have a very important role in this process at the Plan Commission. So, you know, if you ever wanted to sit down with the planning staff or the consultant staff and just kind of talk through anything in these documents, feel free to let me know. I'll bring up South Stoner Prairie. We are a little bit farther along on South Stoner. And South Stoner is in a sense a little bit more straightforward. We do not have the neighborhood opposition as we do in Greenfield. You'll see the map that we ended up has quite a bit more higher densities. We had our second to the last steering committee meeting for South Stoner last week, and then we have our last open house for South Stoner on Thursday night. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep, on Thursday night. So for South Stoner, we'll have one more steering committee meeting. At this last steering committee meeting, this is the packet that we shared. It has the utilities that we're working with. This map happens to show the water lines. We've looked at traffic in addition to that, sanitary sewer. Couple of questions, couple of discussion points, I guess, that we had. And maybe Carol wants to jump in because we're very grateful to have Carol on the South Stoner Neighborhood Plan Steering Committee. We did kind of go back and forth regarding a potential school site. I think staff believes it's important to continue to show this potential school site as shown here. Of course, this is Payne and Dolan property, and they're not too welcoming to this at this point, and it's outside the study area. So we're showing this as a potential school site, but we're not going to be including this in the future land use map at this time because it's outside of the studies area that we're working with. This is kind of it was kind of an interesting discussion, and maybe Carol can kind of bring out too. You know, we feel that from a planning side, having the school is a very important part of a complete community, right?
Right, and we want to have it central to the neighborhood. But the problem is you've got a landowner to the north who has development plans already, and they're saying if you're not showing a school site on the planning map, then that basically means it has to go on our land. And since it's outside of the study area, is it fair for us to put that expectation on that landowner because they're not part of the study area, and that's the only other place that's close enough to have it be considered central to the neighborhood? Because I think, you know, one of the bigger pushes is we want to make sure if we're going to have a neighborhood school, it needs to be in the center of the neighborhood. And there just isn't a good place for it right this second. Mm-hmm. So the landowner to the north was a little bit put off by having that put there. And, you know, you put something on a map and people start looking at that map 5 years from now or 10 years from now, they're going to go, well, that's where the school's supposed to go, so it has to go there. And all of a sudden this whole bottom area is already developed out and maybe that top area isn't. Then there's no choice but to put a school up there. And frankly, when people go to sell their land, the school districts can't afford to pay as much as commercial developers can. So it was that type of a conversation and just trying to figure out the best way to show it.
But I have a question. You have a Verona school district representative in this student committee? Okay. Mm-hmm. So are they planning to build another school in this area?
He thinks that this neighborhood will drive enough students to put. And I asked about, you know, the Town of Verona development that they're planning that's going to be south of Tonto Trail. to see if that would be an alternate site for that, where it could go in actually the town of Verona instead of the city of Fitchburg, because we're going to be adding a school, I believe, in District 1 at some point.
Close to, yeah, this is what I am
So-
thinking. We are going to have another school, a primary, a middle school close by,
Right.
north. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And one of the other discussions that we had was, talking about walkability in the neighborhood is a huge pull for this, that all of our commercial stuff is currently in the northern part of the development, and the highest density tends to be in the southwest part of the neighborhood. So we talked about the possibility of having it some flexibility in being able to have high density with a commercial component in that lower corner that she's showing up there, so that maybe we would have,
Which one?
I don't know what it looks
This
like at this
one.
point. I mean, today it's a coffee shop, tomorrow it might be a boba tea store, it could be, just something for like a gathering place or some sort of commercial activity, so that you don't have to go all the way up into the commercial areas and the industrial areas to access services within the neighborhood. So that was something else that I think staff was going to work on, to see if maybe in the new zoning or something coming up that we could figure out a way to have something nice down there. Mike Zimmerman was there and offered up that it would probably be better to put that actually on Fitch-Verona Road versus where it's located currently, because of the visibility of cars going by, that they would probably be more successful there. But then we were also talking about, well, we have to figure out where the water goes first, where the storm water goes, to make sure that would be viable. But it was a lot of very good discussions, some a little more contentious than others, but all in all, I think we have a really good plan for this neighborhood. I really like it. Staff's done a great job of getting everybody's opinions pulled all together, and it looks, I think it's going to be great.
Thank you. So do you think that this plan is going to be in front of us for approval before the other one?
I think that's certainly possible. What we found out last week is we have to work through sanitary sewer capacity here. We do not have enough capacity right now available to serve the kinds of densities and development. So we're going to have to work through with Public Works what that looks like. So we certainly could push ahead and leave some question marks. That's fine to leave some question marks in the plan, but those question marks are going to have to get answered before any new development happens here.
So where is the sewer extension? Where is there is one in Lacey Road, isn't it, that we did recently, or no?
So I think this is kind of the complicated map. So I'm going to qualify myself here. I am not a utility engineer, but my understanding is we can serve part of the Yahara parcel with the Seminole interceptor that'll come down Lacey. This is where things get a little bit tricky on the other side. The red line that is shown here is an MMSD proposed interceptor line. It's not under construction. It's not a timeline for construction at this point.
Verona start develop, they have to move faster with that.
Yeah, so that from our utility engineers would be the ideal approach to have to connect and service this area. The less than ideal approach is, of course, Fitch-Verona Road is being reconstructed. There's going to be a roundabout put in. Right now, there is an existing sanitary line that serves this area that comes down Fitch-Verona. The current plans are to just simply line that and improve the existing sanitary line. That line is not large enough and does not have capacity to serve everything here. So the option that the utility engineers are going to have to figure out is, do we run another line down Fitch-Verona?
Oh, now when we do the road, okay.
Yes, we would have to do it.
We will have to do
Like
that
really
quickly, okay. And it's gonna add a couple of millions of dollars.
Don't, I'm not, I'm out of my league here. But, you know, these answers have to we have to do these answers before we can allow any development to happen, because otherwise because everything's going to have to, all of our stormwater has to go north somehow to MMSD. So we have to make sure all of our lines are properly sized as we go.
Do we have gravity there?
Yes,
Okay.
right now, it looks like we can do all this in gravity.
Okay. Okay. Okay, this is
That was
great.
probably
Okay.
way more information, but,
Okay, any other comments, question for, no? Okay, so thank you very much for all the hard work.
Yep.
I know it has been.
Just let me know if there's questions or comments or something as you have a chance to take a look at the materials.
Anything else that you want to share from your department?
No, unless you remember something.
Well, you know what is my topic.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, okay, so next we are moving to, thank you, Diana. So the 6B, a report for Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee.
No meeting this month.
Okay, from TTC.
TTC, we met on December 5th. A couple of updates. We talked about the Vision Zero resolution again, and we did find out at the last meeting that, I can't remember if I told you, but we received a group grant to create a comprehensive safety action plan. We did a application with several different municipalities and received it, which means that we can get a consultant, likely in Q2 of 2025, to put together a road safety action plan that could finish as early as Q4 of 2026. And this is really an important first step in us looking at the safety of our roads. And this would be an important first step before we actually are able to implement a true Vision Zero. Vision Zero resolutions are a common thing that are happening nowadays. And typically when you create a Vision Zero resolution, it has a date by which you want to actually have zero road deaths. So the implication of that would be that you're going to invest to make that happen. We've had a long conversation that we're not really prepared to do a full Vision Zero resolution because that obligates funding that we do not prepared to really understand how we would spend that. And therefore, we think that if we're going to do one soon, which we think we might want to do, it would be more of a symbolic one where we talk about this as a goal rather than as an aspirational goal rather than a specific goal, in that you're setting deadlines, because the comprehensive safety action plan will help guide what the actual policy and costs as we'll go through that. So anyway, we're still in discussion of that. We actually did look at a draft resolution, though, that was more in the realm of an aspirational Vision Zero and not a policy direction.
Why we're going to do that if it's not going to be a policy? I don't get it.
Because
You know what
it's aspirational. It's saying,
So-
yeah, I mean, it's saying that I personally think, I've talked about this, I personally think that until we started having this conversation, I was of the mind that road deaths are inevitable. I've always thought that. And we don't have to think that. Like, I mean, obviously, there's probably no way that will ever completely eliminate it. But when you have that as the goal, you can create and design your roads and start building them in a way that uses the best, most up-to-date designs. And so I think saying that we don't think that road deaths are acceptable, I think is a different thing than just business as usual. That's my personal opinion. So, and we'll certainly have more discussion about it at TTC and at council in the future. Also, we looked at the 30% plans for the north-south bus rapid transit down Fishatry Road. We actually looked at the designs of the stops. The one at Treverton Pike, which is right near the McKee-Fish Hatchery intersection. That's going to be the end point in a charging station. There's a Cahill main stop, which is actually close to where the stop is currently. So that's actually the only one off Fish Hatchery, off the main route. So it's behind like the Pick and Save. There's High Ridge Trail stop, Post Road stop, and a Greenway Cross stop. So if you're interested in seeing those plans, those are available online. And we also discussed them in TTC. That's my update. And I also have one from council, too, if we want to.
Okay, yeah.
Did want to let you all know that the minor comp plan amendment, both of them passed, but the one in regards to the plan and council power, that did pass. There was a non-substantive amendment to add the word entire to clarify that it's the entire council and not just 2/3 or not just a majority of those present. But anyway, I just wanted to let you all know that that did pass, and that's now the policy. Unanimously, yes.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Thank you. Any other announcement? Comment? Okay, so I want to say happy holiday to all of you. I will see you next year. And I think this year has been a good year for the city. We're moving forward a lot of good things. So I want to say thank you very much for serving in this commission and for your comments and opinions. This is great. And thank you to the incredible team here, the planning department. And I know that you are doing a lot of things and with understaff and, so thank you, Diana and Zach, Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning at 8:34, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. Bye-bye.